Billy McGrew, Tuffet Dibble Grub.
Good evening everybody. This is the first Project 74 video for over a year. That's any Project 74 video of any kind. This does mean, however, that I've got quite a few models already built, although I have come to a bit of a stall on one model because it's changing quite a bit from the original design. Anyway, this is the 3-set model fire escape, or fire engine to everybody else really. It's a little different, not a great deal. Let's just say it's been embellished somewhat to make it a little bit more, perhaps better looking, structurally sound. In other words, for the main part, we're not using any string or Meccano cord except for lifting the ladder itself. As you can see, it's red. Wouldn't have been red in the original set. I've used extra washers, which is the norm really, where I can, because I've just got a load more than there is in the original set. However, here and here, the washers are as per the design, which is good. So it is using some of the washers at least to protect some of the flexible plates and slotted holes. I've used extra ones at the rear here which are not in the design, and there's some on the crank here. Just about all these models are going to be from my main stock of spare parts, and for most of them colours aren't really that important. Perhaps they, for just being nice to look at, or nicer to look at, perhaps the colour scheme will be quite uniform, you know, like so. Instead of having a multitude of, say, different coloured strips, as long as I've got enough of the right colour, they'll all be the same. So in this case you can see they're all zinc, and it does stand out rather nice on the red. Regular viewers and regular readers of the Facebook page will know that I don't like bending any parts really, but especially not good condition parts. And to an extent there's a bit of paint missing here and there, but these are all pretty good. But I found this rather nice one on the front. I thought, well, I don't really want to bend it, but I've got to really. And so I did sweat a little bit while I was doing it, and I put it together. And overall, I mean, it's been a while since I built this really. I mean, it is about the same as the last video posted, probably just under a year. So I can't really remember things like build time, but the standard model is probably about, well, I don't know, an hour and a half. And you look at it and think, well, why is it an hour and a half in the standard form with using the cord, Meccano cord, for the steps on the ladder up here, and building it as the design, which shouldn't really be a problem really. Well, one of the problems was fitting the flexible transparent plastic plates getting in, and of course they're a bit springy and the access is pretty awkward around the back, although it's not too bad. It's the reach really. If you go through from the rear of the cab, which is wide open, it's the reach is a bit awkward. It's a bit fiddly to do, so that takes its time. But this probably took 4 hours, and the reason for that was, like always, trial and error. Trying to get the right length bolts to fit across the ladder, finding out that I hadn't got enough bolts to do it the first way, the simplest way if you like, other than the cord of course. So that took a while, but I'll show you those in a bit from the top. By the time you've got this flexible plate curved and in place, this cab area is something like 75% complete. And I was going on with it, and to be honest, it was probably after I'd completed the cab altogether I realised there was a slight difference from the original design that I couldn't really get away with without stripping the front off the cab and putting a different plate in. If you look at the original plan at the start of the video, or towards the start of the video, you'll notice there's a pulley there acting as a grill. But as you can see, on this age of flexible plate, there's no hole in the centre to do that. So I had to come up with a little modification to fit some lights to give it a bit of, well, a bit more of a feature on the front. It does look a bit Yankee now, I suppose, a bit American. I put a bit of a bumper on the front and then some brackets, all narrow strips, and there's some plastic spacers, slightly long bolts. And I've done my little trick with the headlights where you've got the small, almost transparent, shall we say, opaque rubber grommets. It's a bit bare if I was honest, but at least you got some detail at the front. Ideally these lights could be a bit wider, but you've got the curve which would throw them at an odd angle, a bit higher perhaps, or a bit more of a grille there, but I'm not going to take it apart now. Now the rear was a little bit problematic, mainly because I hadn't got many red plates in good condition, either metal or plastic, to form the base as per the instructions. The instructions has no strips surrounding it, and they are the blue flexible plastic plates. You can imagine how good they'll last. I hadn't got enough plastic ones to do it all plastic, and I hadn't got enough metal ones, not in decent condition. So to beef it up, I put this framework round of strips just to make it a bit more durable really, because those plastic plates, they're not really that good when they were new, and they're certainly not very good now they're like 40-50 years old. So built that up, and in a way it's pretty good. It's a bit like having the aluminium checker plate round the base. When you're climbing all over it, give you a bit of grip. This might look a bit dark, folks, because there's that much shine and reflection coming off those zinc parts. It's fooling the camera a bit, but I think you see it clearly enough. In the original design, this rear of the vehicle and the platform is formed by bending a 2.5 inch by 2.5 inch, that's a 5L by 5L flexible plate, but it's a bit, well, it's flexible. So I've done my own thing. I would have liked a red flexible plate forming the rear of the vehicle there, but as I say, I've got no decent ones. I might not have had any red ones at all at the time. And then I've just beefed it up basically. Here you can see my version of the steps, thus getting away from using Meccano cord. Much better look, a lot heavier mind, but we can do something about that and stop the ladder falling down when you release the crank handle. That's quite simple. Most of the bolts I had that would reach across, and I didn't have quite enough, were too long, far too long. So I'll come up with this way. It's not quite as neat as I'd like it, but it's not bad. And that was to use these rather long bolts. I think they are 28 mils, and standard bolts to make up the difference here and there. You'll notice here there's a bit more of a gap. There's a 12 mil bolt there, a 14.7 mil would have been too long, and a slightly shorter bolt there. Now it was much easier to sort out the pivots here by using separate bolts, hence why there's a little bit too much gap, because if I'd used the next bolt up they would have touched, and I didn't want that. It was more than a touch, it was sticking out a bit too much on the side of the ladder there. The spring clips here being used as spacers for this sort of subframe to hold the front axle on. That's a very neat idea. I've not seen it in any other models, okay. I ain't seen every model in every instruction book up close. I've seen quite a few of them and I've not seen that before, and that's a very good use of the parts that you've got in a set. Now because of the bolts being used for the steps on the ladder, effectively the ladder's a little bit wider than it should be, and the supports here, one either side of the ladder, formed by the angle brackets there. It does mean it clips quite tightly in between those, and because of that I find it's best to release it first. Of course it does hold the ladder more secure, it doesn't flop around at all. Let's just get it unclipped, there we go, and I'll just rest it on the top and then we'll raise the ladder. Now if you want the ladder to stay in place, what you've got to do is pinch the spring clips together so it grabs a bit better on the side of the parts and it stops the crank rotating. Of course it does mean it won't drop down under its own steam, as it were, under its own weight. As you can see, it rises up almost, well, it'll go a bit further than that, to be honest, a little bit further, and it will rotate, as you can see. There you can see the ladders there, spinning all the way around, as long as the crank handle's up high enough and clears the deck of the fire engine itself. And then I'll just slacken it off a little bit. Hope that's enough. Not. Oh, it's almost come down nice and steady then, almost like it was hydraulic. But there you go. Of course, if you've got that too slack, the ladder will just fall flat. It's freed up a bit now, so it's, yeah, that won't hold up now on its own. You'd have to pinch the spring clips together. But there you can see a bit of a, well, detail, I suppose. Bit of the end of the hose there, formed by that rod and strip connector. And it's a neat little model, really. I've just noticed a problem with the red pulley I've used. Again, because I've used red wherever I can. The 2-inch pulley that forms the base of the ladder there, it's come loose on its boss. It's not a particularly good condition one, and it's about as straight as a dog's leg in parts. So there you have it, folks. 1974, number 3 set fire escape, or fire engine if you prefer. One of the things I might do, because it is a neat little model, it don't take up no room, because of the new, rather, well, I'll be kind, poor inventor's sets, I've now got some blue spacers, blue plastic spacers that I could use to make up some mock lights. I'll probably add them just to give it a bit more of a look, as it were, and I'll see you again soon.